Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Squad Academy. Kind of as we promised last week, we're trying to get back in rhythm. So this is our second week now, back to back. We're giving it to you guys. So welcome again. Of course, I have my most honorable, the mayor of Lagos with me, Edosa. How you doing, my brother?
How's it going, guys? Doing good, man. Doing good. We should tell them how early this is.
Oh, yeah, guys, it's like 6:30 a.m., almost 7 a.m. here in Texas. So, but yeah, we have a few things I will just talk about today. First one being the recent layoffs going on at Chipper Cash, which is a fintech startup based in Africa. They will also talk about the Binance, some of the Binance issues that are going on and how the Nigerian government is addressing that. They will touch on we'll kind of briefly touch on the recent arrest of the CBN governor, Emefiele. And I think we have one more topic on that I'm not discussing, right?
Yeah, they will probably glance through Tingo. I know the short sellers, Hiddenburg Research recently put out a long article about them. We'll talk about that and maybe like the whole Uber saga as well.
So without any further ado, I guess we can just dive right into it. So the first one being Chipper Cash. So for those who don't know what Chipper Cash is, right? So Chipper Cash is pretty much just a cross-border payments platform. So pretty much in the fintech space, and it's recently undergone a few sets of layoffs. The most recent one is the third round of layoffs, and that's happened within the span of a year, in less than a year, to be honest. The first one was in December 2022, and that one affected about over 50 employees. That kind of touching their product and marketing and compliance departments. And back then, the communication was the goal was to kind of to indicate some kind of strategic shift within the company, but we knew it was due to the economy and funds depleting internally and stuff. Right now, the second round of layoffs happened in February 22, so February 2023 this year, and they actually terminated about 140 employees, which accounted for like a third of its workforce. So that I can see how much that cut into the company, and this one actually hit the engineering team, and they actually cut about 60% of the engineering department. Now, the most recent one happened, more recently. There was also news that Chipper Cash, in March 2023, there was news about Chipper Cash reportedly considering a sale of the company. But the internal team came back and kind of debunked that statement, saying that they only did that as a formality, that there was really no desire to sell the company or to engage in some kind of M&A deal. But it was really all a formality. A little bit about Chipper Cash and going back, right? So Chipper Cash valuation, right, at some point reached $2 billion. This was after they raised about $150 million in a Series C extension round in 2021. Now, prior to that, they raised $100 million in Series C. So the first raise, so that a total of $250 million in Series C funding. The second round, or the extended round of the Series C funding, was actually led by Silicon Valley Bank and FTX. Two
mad combo.
Terrible combination. Terrible. I feel like every week we're getting more insight on different African startups that were affected by these guys, man. So they had to bear the brunt of two different financial organizations who have gone through some recent collapse in the US. Right now, Triple Cash at that point in their Series C, as far as after they raised this $250 million, they actually reached a valuation of $2 billion. Now, post the FTX saga, the valuation has dropped to 1.25 billion. And keep in mind, FTX happened last year, right?
Yeah.
Now, this year again, after the Silicon Valley Bank collapse, I'm sure the valuation must have hit a brunt. Added to that, the ongoing economic situation, right? With the Fed interest rates are going up, I feel like we say this every week. I mean, there's some kind of turmoil in the global economy. Interest rates are going up, and we know when interest rates go up, it kind of has a direct impact on valuation of startups, right? So I'm sure beyond any that I'm sure. I don't want to over speculate or anything, but I'll be surprised if Chipper Cash valuation has now gone below $1 billion, right? Which kind of explains And it will be hard for a company like that. I mean, for a company like Chipper Cash at this point in their development, the next step will most likely be to maybe do a Series D, if not Series D, but most likely go public, right? In some kind of IPO, or it might make sense for them to actually go to some kind of acquisition or something, right? But at this point, investors are mostly looking to exit the investment at this point, right? As opposed to just always trying to raise more capital. So they're kind of in a tight spot, and it couldn't have been any worse time to go through some kind of economic downturn. Now, looking past that, right? The more interesting thing is even the kind of people that this most current layoffs even affected, and he actually went into the executive team, right? So their COO was let go, right? The COO, and I forgot the name of the COO. I think it's Alicia Levin, and the Kenya director as well, or the Kenya country director, because they have different offices in different African nations, right? And I think the Kenya branch was Leon Kipton or something, was also laid off. I mean, due to the recent round of attrition. So this just gives you an idea of how much they've been impacted by this whole thing. But kind of like I said, I don't want to beat around the bush too much, but like these stories keep coming out every week. FTX, SZB, startups in Africa that have been affected by them. And if there's one thing we know about FTX as well, based off some of the documents that we've read, we're meant to believe that it was kind of like a requirement for any company that went through that went through FTX, or any company that FTX helped raise funds. It was kind of a requirement for them to store or to save their
funds on
capital
there, right?
on FTX, right, on the platform in its native token or whatever it is. So as far as the impact of how much they lost due to this whole thing, that wasn't disclosed, but clearly they have been impacted in some way, which kind of explains. Because think about it, this guy's raised $250 million, right?
Yeah.
$250 million in 2021. That's less than 2 years ago. Even if we say that's just 2 years ago, right? For them to be going through this ridiculous amount of layoffs, at this point, they've almost cut probably 50%, because the second round alone already cut a third, or almost a third of the company. For them to be going through this aggressive set of layoffs just shows how much they've been, how much of a bad situation they're in, right? But then again, it's a private company, so a lot of that thing might not be put out there. But their actions kind of show
the direction. I mean, once you start touching the engineering team, then you know that, okay, this is that closing shop, or they're acting like on a closure.
60% for a technology company. For a technology company, you're cutting 60% of your engineering team. Man, things must be bad.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me.
I forget product development. Because I'm not saying like you're fashion development and things like that. What should do that?
And don't get me wrong, Don't get me wrong. At the end, I understand in a technology company, the brunt of your salary or your OPEX will come from engineering team, right? So at the end, they like, you want to get the best engineers. I get it. But to the point that you're actually cutting 60% of your engineering team, I mean, you're not Twitter, man. This is not Twitter where you're just a social media platform. Nah, you're actually a financial technology platform, man. So this is an actual product that needs to be operating at maximum potential. But
well managed, cybersecurity, UA testing, everything continuous. It has to be.
What's your take on this, though? I know this is your area, finance.
Oh yeah, so I think this is quite interesting. I think what happened with Chipper Cash is unfortunate, and I hope they bounce back. But you pointed out some interesting, I guess, lessons from them. One, like you hinted, FTX, they probably have some exposure by being domiciled to FTX. I think that same thing happened with SVP as well. They probably had some funds stashed with them as well. And secondly, I wish media companies start reporting how many people were hired when they were hired. So the same way we report funds raised, they should announce things like, yo, Chipper Cash just hired 40 engineers. I think that'll be impressive, because once you only hear about Chipper Cash when they raise and when they fire, people attach those two numbers together and say, they raised 250. Why are they firing 40? Yeah. So I wish that happened, so that way startups will get some break. People start giving them some credits for employing people. Then the third point relates to valuation. So I'm beginning to disregard the term unicorn. And I think maybe it was popping maybe back then, maybe like 2012, 2013. But now I think other people too don't pay attention to that term again. And if we want to still value the term, maybe there should be like a staging period. So you must have attained the value of a billion plus, right? That's unicorn for more than a year before we call you a unicorn. Otherwise, people will flash in and out of that status. There's so many companies that we know of, but even Nigerian companies that they're no more unicorns. But when they became unicorn, everybody got that whole status and that branding. So we still give them unicorn respect. So I don't think that's fair for the unicorn society. I feel like you should be a unicorn for like 1 year first. Then you not say, okay, this guy is confirmed unicorn. Yeah. So that's pretty much it on
I
the
think there's
space.
more to it, right? I think there's more to it. And it's like the whole unicorn thing, right? I think there's more to it because if you really think about it, the only reason why these startups are no longer unicorns, and a lot of them actually now no longer unicorns, even if you look at it, there are some that we've been hearing about on the back end, some that are trying to go public right now that are probably no longer to go as a unicorn status. But a lot of these guys are no longer have that status because strictly, honestly, because of where we are today. Right.
True.
So that's what I think. That's what I think. I mean, the approach of being there for at least a year might not necessarily solve that if the global economy is good. If there was no interest rate hike, if there was no fear of inflation or anything, these guys would have still been where they are. And I probably wouldn't have valuation at this point because it would have been a lot easier for them to maintain that status, more capital for later rounds, right? The only reason why they've lost that is because interest rates are going up. It's harder to raise capital, right? Demand is not very low. Everyone is so no one is spending as much money anymore. They're all cutting costs, so that's the only reason why they've lost that status, right? Because prior to these guys, you had the likes of Flutterwave and Andela and those kind of early tech startups in Africa who held that status for years. I'm looking at Flutterwave. Flutterwave held that status for years, and now they're trying to go public, and they're seeing their valuation go down.
Yeah.
So yeah, it all really all depends on where the global economy is when it comes to this whole unicorn startup thing. But honestly, I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. These guys there's still going to be a race to unicorn status because they know they kind of stamp or certification that they get with that status opens a lot of doors to them. So but we both know that whole thing is just crap. Like a lot of these guys who are reaching that status don't even have the modes or the numbers to prove that status. It's just a billion on paper. Like when it comes to your actual inputs, your actual coming in and going out of what your balance sheet is saying, we know it's not showing it. It's not showing that kind of valuation. But hey,
it is what it is.
It is what it is. With the whole Binance thing, I know I don't have no more time, but is it Binance or Uber? Which one do you want to go with? But you go ahead.
I'll go with Binance. Then I'll just like skim through Uber and the other news. But with the Binance, right? Earlier like 2 days ago, the Nigerian SEC came out with a letter or circular saying we've heard about Binance Nigeria Limited operating and soliciting investors in Nigeria, and we are almost coming out to disclaim and inform them to stop operating in Nigeria. That it's not as to their best knowledge. That SEC talking to the best of their knowledge. This company that you're talking about, Binance, has not registered with SEC, does not have the required licenses to engage Nigerian investors. So please cease to act and maybe regularize yourself, maybe to come and get your licenses and all of that. But first of all, stop operating. And now Binance has not kind of halted withdrawals from US investors and all that. So it's very shady water. And for the first time, I give kudos to Nigerian SEC. Not for the first time, I think Nigerian SEC has been A1, but in that proactive measure, because we always talk about like scams and things like that. I'm not calling Binance a scam by no means, but about how SEC is sleeping in that, like, where were they when all this happened and all this happened. So going the proactive routes of saying, hey, we're moving ahead. Okay, stop. It's very, very, it's commendable. And I hope, because obviously many Nigerians are in crypto, many Nigerians are pushing that direction. I hope the two parties, both Binance and SEC, come to some understanding. And whoever's advising Binance, I think, should do the needful. You can't just bring them to the country and bypass the common routes. You get, especially when you're even being judged harsher, in single crime. So I don't think you should bring, I'm not calling garbage, but I don't think you should lower your standards when you now come to African countries. Do the regular thing, get licensed appropriately if you are so confident in your process. Then we move, because we never can tell. That may have maybe somebody even fronting at Binance that not even affiliated. Because if you miss all those steps, it's very dangerous to now deceive investors. So I commend the SEC for taking that approach. What do you think about that direction?
Yeah, just 2 cents. Yeah, I'm pretty much you said it all. I think I thought it was very interesting that news came out just shortly after, like you said, the United States government charged both Coinbase and Binance for different charges. Funny enough, the Binance case is actually worse than Coinbase. Coinbase is more focused on the fact that the SEC believes that they're actually trading not just commodities, but also securities, what they believe are securities on their platform, which is why they're saying, like, you know what, you have some security on your platform, you need to register this as securities, which will make it probably worse for crypto, because that means you're at least saying that you should be trading as stocks, which means they need to get some licenses in order to be able to trade securities, right? Another thing as well is they're also saying that and by the way, they're saying the same thing for Binance as well, right? So Binance has the same charges as Coinbase, but also more charges. So they're saying Binance is trading securities. They're saying that Binance staking program. And for those who are not familiar with crypto, staking is pretty much a way of giving custody of your coins and getting interest on them, right? So you pretty much get interest on your coins, or you pretty much your money on the platform. So they're saying that Binance has a questionable staking program. They're saying that Binance US and Binance non-US is pretty much pretty much on the back is pretty much just one entity, that they actually don't separate them, that they have a way of commingling, and FTX has really made this term popular, commingling funds and doing everything on the back end. They're saying that Binance has some questionable things as far as money laundering and doing this on the back end. So Binance case is actually way worse than what Coinbase is. So this whole thing coming out within the Nigerian government, and I won't be surprised if these guys are actually operating illegally in Nigeria. Honestly, I mean, I don't even put anything past Binance at this point. I'm surprised. But if that's the case, like you said, right, they need to go through the proper channels of getting themselves registered. I don't know what this case will bring, but at least and then again, they might be able to really keep a lot of this on the wrap. I mean, you saw was it last year, a couple of months ago, when they brought CZ, the CEO of Binance, as we're talking about, there was a congressional hearing, right? And this guy, where they was going around the corner, don't go around the bush. These congressional hearings are those jokes anyways. I mean, they don't really give answers to any kind of context.
Political dancing.
No political dancing, man. But they're pretty much trying to understand, okay, like, how exactly does Binance operate? Is there any commingling of funds? Are you at least separate entity? How are you protecting your customers? Those kinds of things, right? But we initially couldn't really get anything from that. It was just, and I think that was the frustrating part. It was kind of like the braggadocious person, and the way that he was just able to just go around the bush and not really give direct answers. And I think maybe that really what pissed them off. But that just pissed them off. But at some point, they have to regulate this. They have to regulate these guys properly, right? But going to be the same for Coinbase, be the same for Binance, in order to protect the customers. That's really the main part. Because I think the one thing that's really happening, and I'll go back to it again, a lot of people are really getting hurt. The whole FTX saga really, really, really made the SEC say, and not just within Nigeria, not within the US, within Nigeria as well. One thing I give Nigeria, they've always been cracking down on crypto. They've always been cracking down on crypto, right? And if anything at all, the SEC will probably know how much our own startup ecosystem has been hurt by this whole FTX saga. And I'm not surprised that they're trying to be very extra careful with knowing who's in this space. How do we get them to go through the proper channels? How do we regulate them, and how do we protect customers? So, like you said, kudos to the SEC, and we just hope this yields some positive results. But yeah.
Right. So I'm just going to do a quick sprint on 3 high-level discussions, and then I'll get your 2 cents. So I'll mention all 3 first. Let us get your 2 cents on anyone you want to touch on. First of all, is a company called Move. Many may not have heard of them, but everybody knows about Uber. So Move is like the financing partner for Uber, right? Move was founded by like a seasoned, well-known Nigerian entrepreneur. They've raised more than $200 million so far from British investors, IFC, so many developmental funds. But most of that raising, which is very important, was debt financing. So dollar loan, hard currency. And the whole business model was this. We raise a lot of money. We go and buy so many like new cars, but like small cars, all those saloon cars, right? Buy a lot of cars, we bought about 5,000 cars or more than, right? Buy a lot of new cars and sign those cars up under Uber. That way, independent drivers can say, hey, look, can I use this car to drive under Uber exclusively? But then I'll be paying you for the car like a daily rate, right? So it was almost a lease financing to get access car, but the car must be used for Uber. It's great for everybody. Driver gets access to a car and starts making income. Uber gets fleets of drivers. People couldn't drive on Uber because the barrier was, I don't have a car. So Uber now gets exclusive drivers. And Uber used to complain that many drivers in Nigeria have 5 apps. They drive on Uber, on Bolt, everything. So these guys are not exclusive. Then the leasing guys make their money. But like you said, interest rates went high. Economy is bad. So many things happen like December, January, February. From naira scarcity, fuel scarcity, those 2 things alone, imagine how that affects a driver. So the arrangement was you pay 9,000 naira every single day. You have to make at least 10 rides every single day. So in fairness, and this is the debate now, is that nobody's contesting that the economy didn't change and it's not hard. But now that the economy is now more hard, the drivers are now questioning that, hey, are these hawkish or sharkish terms were we taking advantage of because we're not that literate in finance? That, paying 9K every day for what you claim to be both interest and insurance and all of that, is that conducive? So many drivers started defaulting because they couldn't meet up, and Move started impounding their cars. You get like they seize the car and all of that. I mean, you paid all this money for all this, maybe a year or whatever, and now you have nothing to show for it. That was difficult. Then the drivers also complained that, look, we were promised health insurance, vehicle insurance, all of these things, and we didn't get that. Move hasn't responded officially on those fronts, but they responded about the payment. They said they've reduced the daily payments to like 6K for some, but at the end of the day, they're a business. So many drivers have to go to like other lending apps to borrow to pay their daily rates. Crazy combination. So if you have to pay like 9K a day to use a car, right? You have to make it at least 15K because Uber takes 25% commission. That brings you back to like 11,250. So that way, from 11,250, you probably have to buy fuel, maintain the car. But from that 11,250, you have to give Move 9K from that. So, they're basically going nowhere. Very hawkish terms, right? So I want to hear your thoughts on this.
That's just ridiculous, man.
It's crazy.
That's just ridiculous. That's just so terrible, man. Jeez, I'm so short of words. I mean,
it's like perpetual poverty because first of all, you signed a bad term, but now to even get that, you have to go and borrow loan again from all these apps who are very expensive just to pay this guy back. And so you've almost put them in a trap. And Move probably pitched because people that invested in Move are impact investors, the IFC, all those guys. So they're probably pitching that, yeah, taking people out of poverty. But now you just kind of created multidimensional. But what do you think, man?
It's kind of like you're kept locked into the system because now you kind of like you said. I mean, I've been in Nigeria. I've seen these guys work and operate, right? The cars, honestly, those cars will never pass. The problem not fit to drive on the US roads. Like those cars are not the same.
No, that's another point I forgot to mention. But yeah, go on.
Those are not the safest cars.
Safety tests.
There's no way those cars will pass crash tests in the US. Absolutely no way, right? So like these cars are very small, compact cars that they drive. You can tell they're very low cost, They're probably not even made in, I mean, they're probably made somewhere in Europe and mass produced and pumped over here. So it's not as if those cars are costing them that much to make, right? The cost of those cars zero to none, right? What I'm saying is they're giving these cars, they're probably paying premium prices on those cars on a monthly basis, right? And after after you spend a year paying that car, you kind of feel you're kind of locked in the system because you don't want all your efforts to go to waste, which is probably why they're not going through archaic measures to just or extreme measures to just find ways to pay the outstanding bills and still have those costs. Because at some way they need some sort of living, right? But the sad thing, and I don't blame this driver, but the sad thing is they're only digging themselves deeper and making the situation worse. But what it looks like to me is the business model itself, it's crap, if you ask me. I think there's a better business model that can probably give them more fair options to both the drivers and move, right? But this current model, because it's not like all they just do is just providing cars. They're working with Uber to provide the drivers. How about you just create your own app? You already have the cars, you already have the drivers within your own system, right? Uber is taking like 20% or some stuff like that. How about you just take Uber out of the picture, terminate the contract? You already have the drivers within your system. The main thing you need to provide is the cars. You already have the cars, right? So provide your own app, cut that cost, that 40% or whatever cost that Uber is taking from you. And that way you're better looking out for the drivers. And you can communicate that to the drivers saying, okay, well, this is how we're doing this because we want to focus on making sure that our drivers are paid or are equitable, right? Or are paid equitable amounts. But this current model, where Uber is providing the platform, they're taking 40%, movies, providing the cars.
No, just for correct, Uber is taking like 25%.
Sorry, 20%. Sorry.
Yeah.
20% or 25% movies providing the cars are taking their own 10K or whatever, and that's a lot of money, dude. Minimum wage
every single day.
Minimum in Nigeria like 20 or 30K per month. Per month,
so imagine
per month, not per day.
Taking 10K every day.
Every day.
That's crazy.
It makes no sense. I mean, we've used these apps, dude. Like, it's not as if rides are that like it's not as if they make that much from these rides per trip, dude. I mean, if I'm going for a Chevron in Lekki, or if I'm going from like Lekki Phase 1 to VI in a regular day, it can be like 2K, 3K, 4K. Now you're expecting someone to make like 5 or 10 of those trips. Have you been in Lagos? Do you know what this traffic is like?
I was about to say that the traffic is making you really reduce your trips.
Yeah, so it's not even
very scary.
It's not feel. I'm not surprised that these guys are defaulting, but I didn't want to spend too much time on this because I know we're on a time crunch. But they need to come up with a better business model that create a fair, more equitable solution or situation for their drivers. That's all I'll say. But this is not sustainable.
Like you said, from the high level, just as you pointed out, I think anybody else that is investment inclined will see the gap already from move, in the sense of you were financed heavily on debt. Other startups are financed with equity and dollar debt. So meaning every time somebody is paying you 9K, you're trying to convert that back to dollars to pay your dollar interest rates. And every day that's getting more and more expensive. So 9K is even getting worth less to you every day. You get, so that's technically that loan is getting more expensive. So I think they were badly financed. You borrowed that much to buy a depreciating asset, cars, and you're getting paid in naira, a depreciating currency. You are getting screwed from the top. But then to quickly brush on the others, right? Single, I'm not going to dwell on that. Everybody should go read up on that. Basically, a short seller has come up to say this Nigerian company, who surprisingly is trading on the Nasdaq, was basically, they call it, is it basically an obvious fraud in plain sight. The company apparently, but what's paining me? I wish I found this and I shorted it, because apparently the company even had typos on their audited statements. Like the statement that is published to Nasdaq, there are typos like comments saying, "Hey, please take this out." It's like as if somebody was writing on the audited statement. I wish I saw this, and it's crazy.
Funny thing, I kid you not. When you sent the article to me, like when you sent the research to me earlier this week, I went on Robinhood. I was like, let me look at this stuff, but it's already been shorted. Like they've already shorted the stock, man. Dude, I was so mad. I was like, missed that one, man. It's easy money, but yeah,
crazy. Yeah. So I mean, it shows the beauty of not following the herd, right? Somebody just sat back and said, "Wait, I call BS." and took action. I went deeper, did his research. I think everybody should do a research.
Yeah.
Then if you feel it, put a stake there. Then last but not the least, the Emperor, the Conqueror, the someone who's played a very vital role in Nigeria's economic story for the past 8 to 9 years, served under 2 presidents, Jonathan towards the end, and Buhari's 8 years as well. So probably 10 years in office. I think that may have confused him with the illusion of permanency. But then, hey, I'm not shading of you.
Is that bros? Is that bros? See, come, you don't do pass yourself. You don't do pass yourself, man. You don't do pass yourself. Bro, it cracked. Bro, that was the last time I was expecting, man. It cracked me up. Jeez.
Yep. What's funny about that is that, if you're in fintech, you get scared every Friday because that's when he used to drop the deadly letters. Like, he does drop circular saying, hey, crypto is banned. Hey, AboKFX is banned. He used to drop it on Friday evenings. So his own letter now came Friday evening. Yeah. Crazy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, by the way, for those who don't know, so about talking about Emefiele, right? The CBN. I don't know. I guess you call him the CBN governor, but we know the current situation.
Yeah, he's technically still governor because, I guess he was suspended and now called for questioning.
Yeah,
he gets
so pretty much also then arrested. Pretty much he's arrested, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and I mean, for I'm not dive into much to, but I know, and this article is public, not anything private. But I know they're trying to really get more clarity on what happened with the whole narrow design and how they enforce that policy and all that kind of stuff, right? So, I mean, we don't want to really dive on this, but as the case progresses, we'll probably get more insight on it and how this develops. But yeah, it's a funny, not so funny situation because we're talking about the CBN governor. But just makes you realize kind of country that in, man.
And it's scary for Nigeria's. If you're a foreign investor and think about Nigeria, you're like, damn, the past 2 central bank governors have kind of been removed. You get, as if they bowed out and like, Lamido Sanusi exit was by removal, technically through the presidency or the Senate or whatever. This guy now, basically suspension on the way to removal. You get. So it is 2 concerns. Is one, are the CBN governors corrupt? Very funny question is on Nigerian. Are the CBN governors corrupt? But then secondly, is there really a separation of power? How free are the CBN governors if the president can just snap?
That's what I was going to say because technically the CBN should be independent. It should be independent. Yeah. I think the problem, and we talked about this in the past, the problem is they're not always that independent in Nigeria. It kind of seems like they're aiding or supporting the president's initiatives. So that's why when things like this happen, if there's a new person in new power coming, like you will get punished for the rubbish you've been doing since, right?
Exactly. And as the catch-22, because when you not even act independent, the president may now say, the president does not believe you should be independent. The president say, hey, why are you doing this now? Why are you forming? You understand? So, like, when I just tell you to feel free, no, you're independent. But you're not going to do an independent decision that the guy doesn't like. Okay, so it's very interesting development in our space. We'll just keep watching and informing you guys as well.
Yeah, that's all we have for today. And I know we brushed on a lot of stuff, but ultimately, as you can probably tell, it's been an eventful week. So we'll see how some of these cases unfold over the next couple of weeks, especially with the CBN governor. The fintech space as well. If more startups come out with layoffs or impacts due to the FTX or SVB saga, but we'll keep you guys updated. And as I'll say every week, thank you all again for listening. We're getting back into the rhythm, as you can tell. And if you have any topics you want to share with us, let us know. But in the meantime, feel free to like this podcast, share this with your friends or your network. Like I said, we'd love to engage with our listeners. So let us know if you have any thoughts. But once again, thank you for listening. It's been a great honor, Adosa. Thank you for being flexible and helping on this early Sunday morning. But now I'm gonna freshen up and go to church. All right,
guys. That's always a pleasure, man. Take it easy, everyone.
All right, everyone. You have a good week. Stay blessed.